Welcome to Webinar Wednesday. My name is Martijn Lofvers. I'm the Chief Trends Watcher of Supply Chain Media. I'm also the Editor-in-Chief of Supply Chain Movement, bi-weekly newsletter and a quarterly magazine. And I'm also the architect of the IT Supply Map. We'll discuss about it later. In this live webinar, in the next 60 minutes, we talk about real-time transport visibility and beyond. And we have a nice large panel, I would say, to discuss this topic. So to go through it briefly, first, Mark Boulot, welcome.
Thank you, Martijn. It's a pleasure.
Maybe you can explain briefly about your background and your company.
Yeah, thank you very much. I've been active quite a while in the visibility space. I started my career at Transporion. Later, I moved to Project 44, and now I'm working at Forkite. So I had the luxury to work at multiple kitchens, how I always say. And now I'm active and at one of the global visibility providers, supporting mostly Fortune 500 companies.
Okay, thanks. Alexis, maybe you can introduce yourself briefly.
Yes. Hi, I'm Alexis, a native Texan that calls Belgium home now. I joined Transporion 2 years ago. However, I come to the conversation today with 20 years experience in the industry, predominantly with global multinational freight forwarders. The journey of Transporion really began with a simple purpose to foster the connections between shippers and carriers. Over the past 2 decades, we've really evolved into a leading transportation management platform, offering a diverse range of freight applications that cater to all participants in the network: LSP, shippers, brokers, asset-based carriers. And recently, we joined the Trimble family, expanding our product offering and enhancing our global presence, particularly in North America. So nice to meet everyone today.
Okay, thanks. Roland, could you introduce yourself briefly?
Yes, hello everyone. I'm Roland. I'm the founder and CEO of DeliveryMatch. I have about 25 years experience in logistics and supply chain. I founded DeliveryMatch because in my role as a freelance interim manager during 15 years, I saw a lot of issues and mainly a disconnection between sales and operations. DeliveryMatch is an order, transport and shipping management platform that manages the complete outbound chain from purchase to doorbell for both B2B and B2C businesses or combinations. For this, we have about 350 standard connections with all kinds of systems, including 150 plus carriers and also web shop, ERP, WMS and planning systems.
Okay, thanks. David, maybe you can introduce yourself briefly. David?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes, David, go ahead.
Yes, thanks, Martijn. So hi, I'm David Watson. I'm the sales director for Wakio. I've been with Wakio for 2 years. I've have a long history also in the logistics world, having worked for companies such as Zenetta, Navis, and Cargobase. Right, and for the past 2 years, really working with Wakio. And what we do at Wakio is to provide a real-time visibility, not only on one modality, but across modalities. And we're particularly talking about ocean, air, and road, to enable our customers to get a full visibility, right? To really understand like what challenges do you have, and we enrich this with a good suite of solutions, which we maybe talk about later as well.
Yep, absolutely. Thomas, next.
Yeah, thanks, Martijn. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Thomas Speaker, and I'm the VP of Sales for Europe at Shipio. I joined the company 6 years ago, and I've got about 15 years of experience in IT and supply chain. And at Shipio, we built mission-critical visibility solutions. So how do we do this? We do very deep integration into the transport world with a lot of native data points that we can capture. We actually are using AI technology, and we'll speak about this a bit later, since a couple of years already. And we are trying to bring automation to all the stakeholders in the value chain. So not only about shippers or of some of the parties, but we really want to focus on the whole chain of value that we see in this area.
Okay. All right. Last but not least, Nuno, maybe you can introduce yourself briefly.
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Nuno Bento. I'm CTO and co-founder of Mixmove. Mixmove is a startup with headquarters in Norway, which has its mission to digitize logistic networks. It's a cloud solution which supports logistics, connects systems, and increases profitability while reducing CO2 emissions. So that's our passion. That's why we're here today.
Okay. Thank you for your all. Some things, some practical things. This webinar will be recorded. The PDF will be made available afterwards within 48 hours. The audience is on mute. You have two ways to communicate with us. So either use a chat function on the right-hand side, and you can ask questions, but everybody can answer to that. But I would prefer that you would ask questions in the Q&A functionality on the right-hand side. You see small text bubbles. So if the questions are in line of the conversation we were having, I'll ask these questions immediately. If not, we have a Q&A at the end. And next, we also have the opportunity for an extra 30 minutes in a virtual lounge. So you can have a direct conversation with the 6 panelists, and you go to each table if you want to have a direct conversation with one of the speakers. At this point, I will put off the camera, and I would suggest that the speakers would do the same, so you can enlarge your screen as an attendee. So next, I will go to the content at hand. So, in supply chain, there's a lot of things happening, and even CEOs are talking about it. That's what is stated here. This is an overview of the phrases CEOs of Fortune 500 companies are talking about in their quarterly earning meetings. So this is a transcription of it, and this overview highlights the topics being discussed. And as you see on the right-hand side, it's very hot. Supply chain, that's on top of mind. So even CEOs are talking about supply chain. Of course, they're talking about economic concerns, sustainability. There are some geopolitical uncertainty, war. We know it. So this is what the CEOs are talking about. Alexis, what is your take on this overview? What is remarkable in your opinion?
Yeah, thank you. One of the things that stands out is the Industry 4.0. It's not a new concept, but it gets talked about quite a bit. It promises these significant benefits in our industry, like increased productivity, reduced cost, speed to market. But I think we're all really learning how to adapt and adopt in these new practices. How do we integrate things in the value chains like IoT, mobile devices, cloud computing? This piece of digitalization of product and service offerings, of big data analytics, smart sensors, all the way to business models and customer access, things like authentication, 3D printing, location detection. But the one thing that I think CEOs are talking about with this 4.0 is how it also presents challenges related to cybersecurity, data privacy, workforce adaptation, and the need of investment of new technologies as well as skill development.
Well, thanks. And put this in perspective, in supply chain, we talk about cause and effect. And I created this overview of, what are the black swans. We had COVID-19 in 2020. We had the war in Ukraine starting in February 2022. And Gaza, as of October last year, also another a very unfortunate and terrible black swan. But even CBAM, we know CSRD, in the CO2 environment happening as of this year, but cross-border administrative methodology has come to a lot of people as a surprise. So here you see all the things happening in perspective with lockdown, shortages, inflation, cost rises, and as such, and bullwhips are still happening. Quick reaction from David. What do you see? What do you see happening around in your area if you look at this?
Yeah, so this is actually a very good slide, right? As I mentioned earlier, you could actually also replace it with Groundhog's Day, because it's the theme of black swans. That is something that is inherent of logistics, and typically what we've seen right now, if we look at what our customers such as Michelin, Cortiva, etc., are facing, and with the Red Sea, it was particularly to understand, like, okay, how can we mitigate? Firstly, anticipate, and really understand, like, what alternatives do we have, right? Because it's one thing to have the insights that, for example, there's a delay, because no one can predict if there's a calamity coming up, because that's why it's a calamity. But for the other thing, it's like, okay, if we have a delay, what are our options? And that is particularly where the customers and the industry is really in need of that help, right? To say, okay, well, what alternatives can we have? How can we reduce our capital deployed? How can we reduce our last minute transportations? Like, these are things that are really on top of the mind, not only on the operational level, but we see it also going high level to the C level. And I think that is, if we look at what COVID caused, I think it's very important that we also need to realize that COVID really put the need to have a very well-managed supply chain at the forefront, bringing it to the sea level. And we're seeing it again right now with rising costs.
Yeah. If you put it in perspective and dig deeper into visibility, Laura Cesare, analyst at Supply Chain Insight, has done a survey, global survey, in the end of 2022. And basically, she has defined 4 kinds of visibility, moving from the top to the bottom. You have manufacturing visibility, what's happening in the factories. Supplier visibility, what's happening upstream at your supplier side. Then you have logistic visibility, inbound transportation and outbound, and some warehousing. And you have enterprise visibility. So inside your company, you have your ERP systems. Where are your orders and all the data? And as you all can see, there's a huge gap at all the 4 of them. Basically, there's a lot of importance of all these kind of aspects, but all the companies say, regarding the effectiveness, there's still a huge gap to cover. Mark, what's your take if you look at this?
Yeah, our take on it is mostly the fact that if you look where the visibility started, right, it was all just a dot on the map, and everybody was happy with where are my trucks, for example, and they could see where they are at. And slowly, also due to the market standards that our partner just explained, Groundhog Day effect, the market is still pushing us as suppliers quite quickly to develop more insights in what challenged them into their supply chain. So what we, for example, also say, real-time visibility is already transformed to supply chain visibility in general, because customers see the effect and the negative aspect of being blind inside their supply chain. And as real-time visibility providers, we are acting as data aggregators, meaning we connect everything that's not connected, pulling out the live data points, and now also supporting all the connecting parties, how they should communicate in a live environment. And that's what you see right now, is that the companies are understanding the value. And this is the way also moving forward that we will fill the gap, which is still also active on the slide. But the real-time visibility has already transformed to a supply chain visibility request, knowing what you say, when will it enter my warehouse? From a warehouse, when will it go to a distribution center? In retail, for example, covering on-shelf availability, from raw materials to the final product on your shelf in the shop. It really goes end to end right now. And that's what the market is requesting and what we need to connect to and supply at one point.
Yeah. I already get a question from the audience. What about customer visibility? I think that's a good point, but we get to a whole other area. What do you think? And we'll end up with that notion. So bear with us. So, like I said, I'm the architect of the IT submap since 2012. So already quite some years. So basically, I don't explain this whole thing. You can find it. There's a separate website to go through it, to the itsupermap.com. You can find it in an interactive version. Basically, this is a representation of supply chain applications, the ERP vendors, WMS, TMS, SNOP, network design, you name it. But also visibility is on it since a lot of years. And basically, it started out like, you have some specialized vendors connecting all kind of applications. It started out with EDI and that kind of stuff and moved beyond. And in the last 5 years, we have a separate line of real-time transport visibility. You see the parties mentioned here being here since quite a few years. And some of them are coming from different directions and moving into this real-time transport visibility area. And sometimes are fanning out. Nuno, I think visibility. It's also mentioned. It's all connectivity. So, what's your take? What is your heritage in this line?
Yeah, visibility started pretty much from the transportation visibility. Our colleague just mentioned before, it used to be looking into dots in the map and where is my truck. But visibility is a lot more than that. It requires to have transparency over a number of processes which are separated across suppliers, across service providers, across customers as well. And I think all of these companies have been reacting to that, expanding much more, taking visibility not just from the transportation perspective, but from the full holistic logistics, from the order all the way to the settlement. And that has been showing in a lot of different initiatives regarding order management, how, for example, us in Mixmove handle the cross-docking process across multiple service providers to create some transparency and normalization of the process.
So a lot of these vendors are coming in the B2B area. So Roland, you are coming from the B2C area in the webshop environment. So you're expanding into this visibility area, isn't it?
Yes, that's correct. Because in the e-commerce, there is some additional complexity. A few things. First of all, CO2 emission. You see that more and more consumers also sort of demand that there is a visibility on that, and they want more and more to get a delivery option that has the less CO2 emission. And the other one is because of the multi and omni-channel situation, more and more the stock is located on different locations, and that makes that the chain is more complex, and also checking the possibilities and monitoring the chain makes it more complex. But last but not least, if you look at B2B, mainly you're working on a standard agreed SLA. So it is sort of less predictable in the outbound chain, what needs to be done when, what capacity can be expected, what service level is agreed. But if you look at B2C, the demands of the online consumer are getting bigger and bigger, and basically they are expecting their own temporary service level agreement for each order they put online. And that means that it is very hard for online retailers to comply with that, and a risk of dissatisfaction. And if you can just manage the chain from the purchase moment in the webshop checkout to doorbell, and also take into account the capacities and all options that are possible, you will have a bigger conversion and retention being a e-commerce retailer.
Okay, thanks. Thomas from Shipio, you are very deep into this. So what is your expectation of Shipio? In which direction you're going to evolve?
Yeah, thanks, Martijn. I think you mentioned the keyword already, which is deep. I think what we do at Shipio, and if you take customers like Amazon or so, where we are helping with visibility, is the key is to go deep and not only do tracking for tracking purposes, but we need to contextualize data. And I think that's the key message that our customers have been sharing with us. That's also where the value is coming from, that we are all of us delivering to our customers. We need to go away, as somebody said earlier, from a dot on a map and actually contextualize the data, make sure that we have this deep integration. It's not only about telematics, it's not only about tracking a ship, it's understanding what is the container life cycle going to be on the ship, but also after it has left the ship. And I think that's where we are standing through very, very deep integrations into the value chain. And I think in a couple of minutes we'll have time to speak about this in more detail, Martijn.
Okay, thanks. First to get a better grasp on the definition, Mark, can you tell us what is real-time transportation visibility?
Real-time transportation visibility in general, and I think I speak for a lot of people in this group, is end-to-end visibility. Thomas just mentioned it, so we stepped away from just a dot on the map. And if I speak for ForeKites, it's an end-to-end multimodal visibility in a single plane of glass. So if you look to a customer's perspective, what they want is they want to see a single load card with all their transport mode attached to that shipment, from the starting location to the final end location, and literally have a predictive queue of when does it arrive. Mm-hmm. And that is a very short summary of what transport visibility is, and then you can add extra intelligence to it, like dynamic estimated time of arrival calculations with predictive intelligence, automated communications for internal and external supply chain stakeholders. The reason why the individual stakeholder is using it is for everybody different, but just the explanation what it is that I explain to you now. When your full transport will arrive over all the multiple modes. And then using that data to connect it to the right business unit in your company where they can act on it on the right time. So we always say, if you use forecasts, you only want to act on the exceptions and not on the things that go fully right. And next to that is, with all the data that has been aggregated and has been communicated inside your company, you of course can then use the deep analytics and seamless data integrations to improve also your supply chain. And that is then what makes the total summary complete.
Yeah, when the Suez Canal was blocked, everybody was thinking, "Where are my containers?" But that is only one problem. So, what are the biggest problems visibility will solve?
Now, it depends on the mission of the customer, and that's a really important question that a visibility provider also should ask, or what we are obliged to ask to our customers. What is your mission? What do you want to achieve? Because if you only look to this slide already, everybody has, what you see here is that none has the same return on investment or value approach that they wanted to gain or have gained from the problems. And if you just quickly look, for example, that Nestle, for example, they really took forecasts to measure their carrier performance towards their suppliers. That's in the retail environment quite a hot topic. And they deliver all their goods to the food retailers, and the on-point delivery is one of the most crucial factors now, and they outperform others by 2.5%. So that was for their really an important mission. If you take Henkel as one of our customers, they wanted to create the Amazon effect.
Yeah.
So they wanted to increase heavily the customer support and create an Amazon effect where their end customer can already see on container level and SKU level, where is my shipment? But we speak in business to business environment. So that was quite state of the art to get that Amazon business to consumer experience into a business to business environment live.
Yeah.
And then last but not least, to take one, Bayer, they're on this list, right? 44% reduction in delivery and lead times. The summary of the story is, it's really important for a real-time visibility provider, as well for the company that is purchasing it, to have a clear vision inside the supply chain. What is the challenges you want to solve, and how are we going to solve it using the live data on the right place inside your company?
Yeah, thanks for this example. I think the audience can look at it. There are different ways how to see the use of this kind of tools, what they are solving, and also what can they have on a return on investment. But taking a broader view, Thomas, to maybe if you talk about the value drivers, do you see as the main value drivers of this kind of applications?
Yeah, so actually we do see 7 of them, and Mark actually did a very nice introduction into the topic. So thanks for that, Mark. But I think I completely join Mark when he's saying we need to look at the customer, and we also need to be very clear on the market of what type of problems real-time visibility can solve and what it cannot solve. And I think by doing this, it's looking at our customers, looking at the companies, and actually see we call them value drivers. What are the value drivers that actually are applicable to your company, and what is the problem that you're trying to solve? So probably we can start on the right-hand side. What we are seeing when we are talking about supply chain, about efficiency, we hear a lot about promises to consumers. We all have a climate pledge, and the biggest companies in the world, they're striving probably not for neutrality, but they want to reduce CO2 emissions. So in everything that we're doing, it's not only about efficiency in itself, it's also around emissions, carbon emissions. How can we look at a supply chain from a more holistic point of view? Probably there is a gain for money where we can reduce costs. Probably there's also gain for CO2 emissions where we can shift from one modality to another. So that's definitely one important point to keep in mind for the future. And then there are also a couple of items that we have identified in the last years with our customers is, especially take Europe, where we are a strong player, the current crisis, the different problems or challenges that the companies are facing, how can actually RTTV help also to optimize the cash flow? How can we make sure that once we have not only the shipment, but actually what's inside of a shipment, so the pallet, the box in itself, if I ship 10, if 9 have arrived, 1 comes back, how do I can speed up my invoicing processes? How can I make sure that my cash flow comes in earlier? So these are type of questions that we are addressing with our customers. And then, of course, there's always one point that we are addressing with all of our customers is it's around personal efficiency. It's around making sure that staff is not doing what we call the NVAs, the non-value added tasks. It's really focusing them on the exceptions, on the problems that might occur, and everything that's going well. We can have an algorithm, we can have some AI helping the people to manage this, but it's really making the industry or help the customers to understand what is the value that RTTV can bring to them. And maybe we can have a look at how this actually works, Martijn, if you...
Yep.
Yeah, thanks. And I think for the last couple of years, when RTTV started, we were all in this world at the bottom, where we tried to connect as many carriers as possible. So Shipyard took a different approach than others. We went from the beginning very, very deep into the partner network. We connected not only on trucks, we also wanted to have contextualized data from TMS. We also wanted to have shipping line schedules. We wanted to know what's going on in terminals. And all this deep data integration then led to what we started 5 years ago, which was an AI initiative where we actually took all the data, cleaned the data, and now we can actually use this data to make predictions which are super, super accurate and way above industry standards. And this all leads then to the final question. So if I have all this data, if I have this recommendation, is it then only the RTTV platform that's bringing the value? No, of course we trigger. I mentioned invoicing. I mentioned optimized cash flow. So we actually build what we call the control tower concept, and then we can feed other ecosystem players with the data that they need to actually make sure that we have processes in warehouses, that we have processes in customer service departments, that we have finance, that we have probably the CSR with regards to CO2 emissions departments, that they can actually benefit from this data. I think it's this holistic approach that we're all striving for.
Yeah, and it's good to see. It's also a control tower in there and digital twin. So I think that this slide is connecting a lot of dots of, I would say, buzzwords of our topics in supply chain field, what we have discussed in the last few years. But basically, this real-time transport visibility is triggering a lot of innovation, but also connecting it and making clear where to put all these different phrases like control tower and digital twin. Yep. And we'll get to that later on more in depth. David, on to you. Maybe you can explain a bit about Wakio and their features, and then we get also to another area.
Yes.
Well, with connections,
yes,
etc. Yeah.
I think indeed what the colleagues mentioned in terms of in terms of what the role is that real-time visibility plays. It's unique. It might be unique for multiple companies, right? Because it's very important that you be able to address the pain points that we identify in the industry, which have been clearly and nicely summarized by my colleagues, which is at all the black swan events, right? So if you look at what you need to be able to address this, is this rich set of features that you would typically find in a control tower such as Wakio, right? Where you identify saying, okay, well, if you have multiple divisions within the organization that can utilize the value of real-time visibility, what do you have to provide them, right? So then you need to be able to understand saying, okay, well, if we're talking about inventory management, you need to have very accurate data to be able to ensure that SAP, for example, utilizes the correct lead times and not theoretical lead times, and not only just, for example, one modality lead times, but really getting the global ETA. And that's what we're really doing with the predictive ETA on the multimodal side. And then furthermore, what also is very important is not only to look into what Mark mentioned earlier, to say, hey, the dot on the map, which is operational data, but also go one step further. Really is to be able to analyze, to say, okay, well, if I have a certain portfolio of carriers, albeit air, ocean, or road, what is the performance? Like, am I seeing a difference in the performance across the different providers? How do I need to design my supply chain? And I think that is a critical point of it. When you, before you take any activities that you are in a position to make intelligent and well-informed decisions based on trustworthy data. And that actually brings us, for example, to trusted routes. The reason why I'm mentioning trusted routes is because, particularly during the Red Sea situation, we noticed that this was extremely valuable. If you see what we've done with trusted routes, is really to provide, based on intelligent carrier schedules, combined with rating and reliability, our customers to also show alternatives, right? So what we also see in the market is a bit of a limitation that our customers have on the shipper side, but also on the freight forwarder side. If we're talking about Michelin, if we're talking about Blue Order Shipping, for example, is to understand, okay, well, what do we need to offer? What do we need to select? And using trusted routes, for example, combined with the carbon footprint calculator, puts our customers in a position that they are able to select the best option for their network, right? So you're actually really looking at the shipment, pre-operational. And this changes the game because this not only goes into increasing your reliability, but it also puts you in a position to say, when you conduct your freight procurement, and what we're seeing with a group SAP, for example, how they're using it, is that it puts you also in a position to start on that side to have that value conversation. And this goes back into a point that Thomas mentioned, finance. Because now if you start procuring smart, if you start procuring really value to cost ratio, it also has a better conversation when it comes to your C levels. Like, are we actually procuring what we need to procure? Are we actually getting the quality that we need to procure? Right.
Yeah.
So that is more or less how we as Wakio look at it. We really look at it holistically from an inventory perspective, from a freight procurement perspective, to a stock out of stock, a reduction perspective, etc.
Interesting point that you mentioned, with the trusted routes is that what we have seen in the last week is that air freight is going up as a result of the Red Sea blockage. So basically, a lot of companies, as a last resort, are going to air freight, and they pay a lot of it. And if you have already upfront have your alternative in place, you don't have to spend the highest cost like some of the companies are doing right now, because they were not aware of the alternatives, and they haven't fall out of it. And maybe to get there, you need a whole ecosystem to create this visibility, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's a very good point, right? Because yes, you can use a platform such as Wakio as a standalone solution. It's perfectly suited for that. But to really get the full potential out of real-time visibility, it needs to be able to integrate quite seamlessly and quite perfectly within the IT ecosystems. Because let's not kid ourselves, the majority of all of the majority of the shippers and the freight forwarders, they have solutions in place, right?
Yeah.
So in order to be able to utilize a proper lead time, in order to utilize, for example, a trusted routes with the intelligent carrier schedules, etc., a solution must be able to be integrated within the IT landscape that is already existing within a Fortune 500 company, right? Because otherwise, if you have a customer that is working with SAP and you are not able to get the lead times into SAP's material requirements planning in an optimal way, then that's not really where you want to be, right? You want to be able to integrate both of those worlds together so that you automate that whole process. Because at the end of the day, and I think Thomas mentioned that, he said, okay, well, yes, we also need to think about automating the processes. And I think you go already a very long way if you are able to have a solution that can seamlessly integrate with your ERP, with your TMS, to get all of the purchase orders, to be able to also match what's coming in terms of lead times on an SKU level, etc. Right, so that is key, and that's where we as Wakio have been working quite strongly on with the likes of Alpega, Oracle, SAP, you name it, and also the integrator side. And I think that across the board, that is a very strong philosophy to have.
All right. Yeah. Thanks. So Nuno, you are a chief technology officer. So you are actually designing applications. So I was wondering, this integration, what is needed? And there's a lot of talk about data lakes. So talk about connecting this kind of system. So what is needed to get to a visibility platform connected to others?
Yeah, integration is still today one of the biggest challenges for companies like ours, which are providing visibility on a model of software as a service in most cases.
Mm-hmm.
There are, of course, a number of integrations and partnerships ecosystem which are very important. But picking the example of SAP that we were talking about before, I mean, even SAP, for between two different shippers, one which builds to order, another that has a completely different process, it's going to be still challenging to get these integrations to be fully fluid. So yeah, it's a big demand today and a big challenge to make sure that we're able to capture all the information from multiple systems. And of course, different companies will take different strategies to approach it. But I think exciting times are coming ahead with the growth in AI and the capabilities we have now to use semantics and to extrapolate information. Pretty much, I think what standardization never delivered to us, because standardization is always been proven a challenge in this in many other industries, is going to be much more improved in the coming years.
But do you see a lot of companies already have a data lake in place that they can extract the useful data for supply chain planning, or do you still see a lot of hard-coded APIs bolted on an ERP system?
I think we are in a transition phase. I think we are still in a stage where we are ending silos but creating just bigger silos. I mean, if you look into individual platforms for visibility, in many cases what we are doing is that we are capturing information into these platforms, but we don't really think about potentially having these platforms also interacting and sharing data. So data lake is, of course, one possibility to do that, but I think the future is just to tell us what will prevail at the end. But definitely the need is there. The biggest challenge I see really is the fact that we should not be just creating larger silos than we had before. And that is a little bit of what I will also speak about when it comes to describe a little bit about Mixmove and the pipeline that we have.
Yeah. So Roland, you have a different background and a different heritage. Maybe you can explain your ecosystem of DeliveryMatch.
Yeah, basically it started with more focus on e-commerce, but in the end, because e-commerce is very complex, like already explained, we expanded functionality for basically any type of business. So if you look at this ecosystem, the heart of the ecosystem is simply a big calculating machine. You will set up your complete logistic outbound chain in the system. Like shipping locations, carriers, rates, whatever. And then basically you're going to connect the systems of the chain. So the sales systems can be a web shop or ERP or combination of that. The WMS systems in the chain, the carriers, maybe planning systems, and then it will do its work. And we really can, what we do is we always have two-way connections. So yes, integration is a big challenge also for us, but currently we have about 300 plus systems connected. We always follow, for now, the specs of the system we need to connect with, so we can reuse it. So implementing our software can be done very easily and quickly. And it's always two-way. So we will start extracting the data during the purchase moment. Can be in a web shop checkout, can be in the ERP, whatever. And we will also often extract additional data from carriers or whatever to make the picture complete and to start managing the chain. And it means that already in the purchase moment, we know what can be done and cannot be done, when, by whom, for which cost, and with which CO2 emission. So our customers can either let their customers choose in the web shop checkout, or say to us, okay, I want you to select the cheapest, the fastest, or the one with the less CO2 emission, or in a sort of priority order. And then we will start managing the chain. And every step in the chain will be scheduled, will be time-stamped, and will be tracked. Not only the transport part, but also the warehouse part. Is the order in time? Is it picked and packed in time? Is it booked in time? Is it picked up in time, etc. Also, the capacity of the shipping locations and pickups and last mile and transit times are included. After that, we will keep track of the transport part, even if there is a multi-leg process in between, and we can extract every detailed status update, and we will match that with the schedule. And if something is about to go wrong, the traffic light will go from green to orange. That means that you need to do an intervention, or if it's a big problem, it will go to red, then you need to inform the customer. We also can do a lot of things like load balancing, make sure that your logistic chain It has not too much ups and downs from a volume perspective. We can practically generate all transport-related documents also for customs or dangerous goods purposes. And the system from a technical point of view, it's very fast, because you can imagine we have customers that we need to check about 50,000 possible options in a webshop checkout within 1 second. And if the number of requests is increasing, it will automatically scale up so that the capacity will be kept in place. Basically, so we can support any type of business. We also have customers in any type of business: logistics service providers, carriers, retailers, brokers, manufacturers, etc. And it's basically what we try to do is to set up the chain and to plan the chain to do the things first time right. So only do things that are possible and monitor if it is done as scheduled. And that means that we also see an increased sales at our customers, because the retention is increasing. And of course, we can monitor the carrier performance, and we also can do the carrier invoice matching. So you can check if the invoice you are receiving from the carriers are correct. So basically, that's what our system does, and it can be used for any type of business. And we work real time. So if you get a response, it will come back real time with a trigger or data or calculation or whatever.
So thanks. And maybe this is also answering to some extent the question about customer visibility, especially because you are coming from the B2C environment. I got a question from the audience. How can a digital twin solution being integrated with real-time transfer visibility to automatically get the best decision based on scenarios? Long question, but maybe this slide will help. But maybe you can explain how it works on your side, and you also address a digital twin. Maybe it will answer your question.
Sure, my pleasure. So in Mixmove, like many of our colleagues in this workshop as well, everything starts with capturing. Nobody does logistics alone, right? So we start from knowing that a lot of the relevant business information will be spread across systems and companies. So the way how we approach it in Mixmove is to create this concept of the event pipeline, where we represent any event in logistics all the way from order to settlement as an event. And we have our own ontology how to represent those events and how to express them in terms of syntax. So the job that we do is through either APIs or through whatever it's the integration model that we have available. We map and transform multi-state into a common graph database. So the graph database, it's where we end up using the events to create this digital representation, this digital replica of what is happening in the supply chain. And of course, in the graph, we are able to have nodes which represents entities or which can be physical assets, or they can be business transactions. And those entities can all be related. So examples of nodes in our graph are the loading unit, the package. The package will have properties like a barcode, or it will have a weight, it will have association then into another digital twin in the graph, which is the shipment, which itself will be connected to a shipper. It might be related to a number of locations for pickup and delivery. And this is how we are able to transverse information and to create this densely connected network of information, which we harvest from the different systems and different information. Now, this single source of truth, this graph database also uses context. There needs to be context to provide meaning into some of the events that we get into the pipeline, like what are the locations, what is the traffic, what is the situation capacities in a given point of the network. So all that together really creates the base of our infrastructure. And how this connects to digital twins is that the main nodes in this graph, for example, the shipment or the loading unit, they can be accessible via their digital twin. And that API, that digital twin API, which exposes these nodes, it will enable us to get information, which is the current stateful information of the twins, but it will also access to algorithms, for example, to trigger the updates on their ETA, based on the information which is available. Because if we are receiving, for example, information from telematics, which is feeding the digital twin of a truck, it's updating its position. But we also have information about transaction where we know that a certain loading unit was loaded into that truck. So at that moment, I can transverse that the new position of the truck will affect the ETA of that specific loading unit, which, by the way, is part of a shipment. And based on that, we can use the nodes to get really meaningful and deep information about what is happening. I'm not just looking into a point in the map. I know that the truck is there because it's going somewhere, and that is a lot more powerful in terms of the information and what we can do. Visibility is really not about to be an end. Visibility is a mean to achieve a bigger resilience, to achieve a bigger efficiency on how we execute logistics. And so all our tools, crossdock, Xdeliver, extract, the products that we end up bringing to the market to our different customers, they achieve different points of views of which allow the interaction with this model, with this source of information. And digital twins here are key. And going back to the question about digital twins, because if I'm building this platform, if I'm making this platform for one of my customers, 3M, for example, I might just bring in a bigger silo because, you know, some of their service providers might be connected to different platforms as well. And digital twinning really is key. And as a strategy, it enables our platform to be a lot more open and a lot more capable of being integrated into different processes, into different situations where multiple platforms will need to interact. So that's from my perspective the key. And how the twins relate into the data, into the model, really is the key. That they are the digital representation of every single transaction, every single movement in the supply chain, and that makes the perfect base to build algorithms to really leverage the capacities that we have with machine learning today to predict incidents before they occur, to manage risks, and to really be able to, instead of having a plan which is created from the beginning, and it will be always subject to changes and to delays and dealing with all the exceptions that will occur, we enable customers to really plan leg by leg, plan based on real-time information about what the cargo is actually available at a certain points of the supply chain, what quantities, what are the services that are available, what is the situation at the moment, what is the best solution to move. And that is key, and that is really only possible by creating this representation in these digital twins.
Yeah. So here you have this event pipeline more in detail. Maybe you can add some briefly something because
a lot of what is here I already mentioned, but what I want to highlight is that, you know, creating visibility is of course important from the human perspective of monitoring and following what is happening. But it brings a lot more value when that information is also made available into the operational planning, into the leg-by-leg execution. We are quite close to the principle of the physical internet, and it's an initiative which has been developing for a long time in several logistics think tanks. And we have a strong belief that, you know, cross-docking has a very important role in moving the planning into a leg-by-leg model, making sure that all decision-making, all the optimization is done with real-time data based on real-time circumstances, and not just, you know, plans 3 weeks ahead and then having to deal with all the exceptions that are happening. So the capacity that we built in our cross-docking to receive handling units, containers, pallets, cartons, but also have enough detail and enough information on them captured from their digital twins to be able to make decisions whether I should just split this pallet and deliver using a parcel service, or should I consolidate into, you know, a full truckload. All this capacity it's provided to our execution to enable operators to make real-time decisions, to use the best available services, not being tied into decisions that were taken weeks ago, where situations will evolve and may cause changes along the way.
Thanks. You know, you mentioned it here already. We started out with real-time transport visibility, but you also talk about execution. And maybe Alexis, you have also something to say. So, what is the essence of all this?
Yeah, thank you. Transporion Platform is really built. Sorry, you might have to click a little bit more to complete this slide. Thank you. The platform is built to move, manage, and monitor freight while fostering this seamless collaboration between individuals and systems. And we really do that in 2 layers. Our network, which really serves as a trusted environment connecting shippers and retailers with our 158,000 plus carriers to help facilitate efficient freight movement. And we have hubs. These hubs are like our application hub offers this comprehensive range of functionalities, including freight sourcing, transport execution, dock and yard management, freight audit and payment. And these hubs, they're supported by our data hubs, which enhance those core capabilities. So that's where that real-time visibility, sustainability, insight tools come in. And when those are mixed together, it starts to empower the users to make efficient and well-informed decisions. We talk about the gap a little bit here, right? What is planned and what is happening. Mm-hmm. Transparency within the supply chain, it's hindered by diverse systems, fragmented data. It happens vertically within organizations and it happens horizontally. So with stakeholders like suppliers, transport companies, brokers. And in my 20 years, very few companies possess a comprehensive view of their operations, and even fewer can actually respond in real time to supply chain events. The risk, when we look at real-time visibility as a standalone and combined with execution, a risk kind of lies when you treat real-time visibility as a standalone, because its true potential is realized when it's integrated into this broader logistics processes, when it's coupled with your execution and your planning. It starts to really transform that visibility data into actionable insights. That integration, it really starts to bridge that gap between planned activities and actual occurrences. That helps to enable these informed decision makings. One of the things, one more thing that I think is a very important thing in this piece is our platform today handles over 225,000 daily transactions, carrying a lot of valuable milestone data. It's a lot of information. When we engage with shippers and carriers, one of the most crucial questions we ask is, how do you value data? When you start to identify data needs with an enterprise, determining who needs what data, when do they need that data, how it's delivered, you start to establish that criteria for exception handling based on your supply chain tolerances. That becomes more impactful. The quantity of data within a system or platform is irrelevant compared to how effectively you can utilize that data to meet your business objectives.
So what will it change for the supply chain?
Yeah, thank you. I think a lot of the colleagues on the call have really hit on very key points within the market, within the industry. I think we all can feel the world is of constant flux and unpredictability, whether it's shifting market dynamics, vessels stuck in key passageways, politics, transport capacity, shortage. But harnessing all this data on the movement of the goods becomes really imperative. It helps to facilitate this shift and this more hands-free decision-making. And it's guided by the shippers and the carriers' customizable business parameters and what is considered acceptable tolerances within your supply chain. Every industry, every shipper is going to have a different bandwidth that their supply chain can tolerate. And if we just, in a simple way, break it into these 3 pillars, and we look at automation, we've talked about it a little bit today, how we start to utilize machine learning AI to harness that data, to automate processes, do the predictive analysis, enable proactive decision-making at every stage in the transport process. And, using this approach starts to optimize time allocation. I mean, someone sitting in the logistics team who's usually focusing on manual data monitoring can now shift their focus to driving accelerated exception management, strategic planning, start to generate value within a supply chain. Then you start to have real-time insights with that data. How do you consolidate all that relevant data into a single repository, normalizing that data, analyzing it, and then extract meaningful conclusions with actionable insights. This starts to empower our shippers and our carriers and the logistics teams to make well-informed decisions more promptly. They start to mitigate potential disruptions, cost, risks. And then one of the components, the last piece that we've all talked about a little bit, is around that collaboration. This is a common theme, even with disparate systems operating across various businesses. There's significant benefits when all partners that are linked to a unified platform. That enables a seamless real-time sharing of information, ensuring everyone involved in the transportation process has access to the same data set. They're talking about the same data. And then consequently, the uncertainty about the accuracy of ETA or where is my freight, it becomes a thing of the past.
So what does it fuel all this?
Yeah, thank you for the segue. In my career and with my experience, I've really seen our industry just continue to undergo the significant transformation. It's shifting from that traditional linear supply chain model to this digitized integrated network. And this evolution is fueled by advancements in smart automation, AI, ML, IoT, all the other acronyms we've had to learn now, and many other technologies. We utilize these digital tools and software platforms to monitor the physical processes and create these virtual environments that enable smarter decision making. You as a shipper, as a carrier, you should be able to proactively plan and replan your transportation processes based on real-time information, delays, port disruptions, line down, labor strikes. You should be able to mitigate costs and risks associated with demurrage and detention because you have the visibility in real time to manage it. And you should be able to proactively take action if anything deviates outside of your supply chain tolerance, because real-time data empowers the triggering of workflows, alerts, updates at various stages in the supply chain, and it's enriching your process, and it's going to continue to drive efficiency. I remember, I'm sure maybe others on the call can raise their hands. I remember when I first started as a customs broker, I'd have to manually key in all the milestone data into every transport and then manually track every day and update the system if any changes. That doesn't have to happen anymore. This real-time data plays such a pivotal role in enhancing our transportation systems across all modules, and its problem-solving capacity is directly proportional to its ability to integrate with other transportation tools, making that visibility data actionable. But I will say an organization has to be ready to adapt and adopt quickly because it moves fast.
Yeah, thanks. I see interesting, ongoing cycle here, and I think that the large of the challenges is lay at the connectivity of carrier, especially the smaller sized, mid-sized carriers, transport companies who are still living in the paper world and Excel. So, but they have to, connect with other systems, otherwise, they will go bankrupt. And this is a final notion and final slide from my side. We created this visual of the ecosystem. This is about household products, the world of Unilever and Procter & Gamble. So my main question, and normally I would ask all the participants to answer, but considering the time, I won't. The thing is, if you are a company somewhere in this ecosystem and you all want visibility, that was the first slide from Laura's here. We will all see a gap in visibility on manufacturing, enterprise, visibility and logistics, or in your supply side. My question would be, where would you like to start with your visibility somewhere? And you have all kind of flows, goods, information, financial, and this ecosystem visualization will help to point out internally or externally to ask, we want visibility, where is it needed and where do we start? And basically we have seen 6 kind of vendors presenting in this call their view on visibility. So we'll have 1 minute for a question to answer. I would like to ask David. There was a question. Do you see companies who are use more than one platform, or do you think it will all merge to one platform?
Well, that's a very good question and a fair question to ask. Can you hear me, by the way?
Yep.
Yeah, it's a very good question and a fair question to ask as well. It really depends on the objectives of that company. Now, for example, if you say, okay, you want full visibility, multimodal visibility, then if you have a platform that is fully capable to cater to that requirement, then yes, then it will suffice to have one platform. Now, if you say, okay, well, I only need something very specific, then it might be that you do a bit of a mumio. But that is not something that is really to be advised, right? Because you're going for that uniformity. Because I think it's when you are determining what pain points you have, that should be leading in that conversation, right? So it's not really straightforward. You need to have multiple or one. Firstly, you need to take a step back. What is the pain point I want to address? Is it my inventory? Is it a lead time?
Mhm.
What do I want to address? Then from there on out, you make a plan to understand, okay, what would help my solution? What would help my problem?
My answer to this question would be, all companies have an IT portfolio, and it has been evolved all through the years. And you see all kind of challenges. Like I said earlier, you see all kind of black swans, and it triggered a lot. And basically, you have to visualize your IT portfolio on your ERP, WMS, TMS, what is fit for purpose right now and for the future, and then you have to replace some things, and then you add a data lake, and then you are more flexible, and then you can exchange more data, and you can implement way easier solutions in the cloud. So basically, the whole IT portfolio will be evolving, and you should replace some systems over time to be more resilient. So basically, I think in the end, you will move to some sort of platform, but underneath, you can have point solutions to add to that overall platform, like I see. All right. Like I said, there's a lot of questions coming in, but luckily we have an extra 30 minutes afterwards. So if you have some still more questions, go into this lounge right after this, and you see 6 tables. So each of the vendors have their own table, and you can speak directly and ask these questions to this expert. Next to this, I have a link to our IT subway map, and also I have some deep links of some further interesting content about real-time transport visibility. So you see it right there, and it will be made available through the PDF afterwards. And there is also an IT demo day coming up in Amsterdam, Schiphol, so where you see live demos of 4 or even 5 vendors coming up. So that's also available in the end of this month. And with this, I would like to wrap up and thank the audience for listening to this great in-depth webinar about real-time transport visibility and beyond. I would like to thank all of you as an expert to have this input on different kind of angles, quite complex, and to see so many vendors joining to explain what it is real-time transport visibility and beyond. So thank you for this. And with this, I would like to wrap up and thank for now. And I see the experts in the virtual lounge, and maybe the audience, I will see you also there in the virtual lounge. You can go directly to a table and ask questions to one of the experts. Thanks for now, and hopefully I see you in another webinar. Thank you, and bye-bye.